From the archives of the United States Cavalry, the true stories of Colonel Ranald Mackenzie and the cavalrymen he led. Mackenzie's Raiders. His secret orders from the President of the United States. Clean up the Southwest. Make it a fit place for Americans to live. Wipe out the renegades, outlaws, and murderers. If necessary, cross the Rio Grande, knowing capture means hanging by the enemy. Discovery, court-martial by the United States Army. Southwest Texas, 1874, land of great future promise. Thousands upon thousands of acres which held the answer to the country's growing cattle needs. But the frontier was wild and lawless. To protect settlers and ranchers against murderous raids by renegade marauders, constant patrols of the 4th United States Cavalry stationed at Fort Clark. In command, Colonel Ranald Mackenzie, with secret orders from Washington to make the area safe, to ensure the peace so that the promised cattle industry might one day become a reality. Now in late September 1874, Mackenzie was to face a new and different kind of lawlessness.
Here, dump this in Barton's water hole and get away fast. And remember, no shooting.
Sure, Mr. Corby. We'll be real careful. Couple of Barton's men. Take cover. Morning, gents. Hope you don't mind us watering our horses. Not if that's all you're doing. What's in that sack? Sling them on their horses and dump them in a gully where nobody will find them. After all, Mr. Corby said, no shooting.
After months of tension, the outbreak of a ruthless and destructive range war.
Let's be as expeditious as possible, Mr. Bedloe. I'm not used to holding still this long. Not even for Leslie's Illustrated Weekly. Went for my sister back in New York, I wouldn't have to go through this at all.
Well, our readers will appreciate it as much as she will, sir. They'd be disappointed if I took pictures of the famous 4th Cavalry without its colonel.
Oh, come on, Mr. Bedloe. You know you're out here to make pictures of cattle, not some godforsaken army post nobody ever heard of.
A lot of people have heard of Colonel Mackenzie and the grand job you've done out here. Real still now.
Come in. Yes, Sergeant.
Mr. Barton's waiting outside, sir. Says it's urgent.
Can I move now?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Barton's just the man you came to see. Send him in.
Colonel Mackenzie. Am I intruding?
Oh, not at all. Mr. Bedloe? Mr. Barton, this is Lee Bedloe of Leslie's Weekly in New York.
How do you do, sir? How do you do?
He was just inquiring the way to your ranch. Now you can take him there yourself.
My ranch?
Yes, sir. I've been assigned to do a pictorial feature on your new cattle.
I didn't know the folks back east were interested.
Ah, they should be. They're still feeling the effects of the financial panic last year. Factories closed, men out of work. If your shorthorns can put cheaper meat on their tables...
Not only cheaper, but better. Longhorns are nothing but bone and gristle. Shorthorns are fat and chunky. They cost less to feed and they're easier to raise.
Well, that's why I'm here, sir. To photograph your herds and to show that contrast.
Well, that's splendid, splendid. But I don't think you'd be safe on my land.
I don't think anybody would be safe there.
More trouble, Mr. Barton?
Well, there haven't been any more raids. Nobody's tried to stampede my herd, but...
Raids and stampedes. Well, this is more of a story than I expected. I thought rustling had been stamped out in this territory.
Yes, we try to keep it down, Mr. Bedlow. What were you saying?
2 of my men are missing. That's what I came here to tell you.
You mean they quit?
I think Corby killed them, or had them killed.
What?
What else am I to think? Those men were loyal. They believed in what I'm doing. Now they're gone without a word. Didn't even collect their wages. I had them guarding my water hole. They're gone without a trace of them.
Pack your cart, Mr. Bedlow. We'll ride over to that water hole with you. Maybe we'll find a trace.
Well, there's not much chance. Some of my steers were watering there when I rode by. I think they trampled out any signs we might have found. There they are, Mr. Bedlow. Did you ever see a more beautiful sight than those shorthorns of mine?
Yes, I can see why you're proud of them. Would you mind if I stayed here and took some pictures instead of riding on with you?
Why don't you do that, Mr. Bedlow? The water hole area is a little rough for a wagon anyway. We'll pick you up here on our way back.
That's Mackenzie Barton got with him. I don't like it.
Probably somebody to complain to when he finds out what happened. About a good it'll do him. He'll have a bigger complaint when his shorthorns start licking his poison rock salt.
Are you sure you didn't leave anything near that water hole that'll point my way?
Not a thing, Mr. Corby. You got nothing to worry about.
Good. Let's get out of here. Dead. All of them dead.
This one isn't. But it's past saving.
No. My animal, my job. Well, that's more of Corby's work. He's doing everything he can to break me. Stampeding my herd, raids my ranch, and now he's poisoning my cattle.
I think I'll go have a talk with Mr. Corby right now.
What good will it do you? You have no evidence. You can't prove that he did this. You can't even accuse him. They'd laugh right in your face.
Yeah, I expect he will. But you give a guilty man a chance to talk long enough, and sometimes he makes a slip. Maybe we can even help him to make a slip.
And if he does?
Well, if he does, it won't be legal evidence, but at least we'll be surer than we are now.
I'll go with you for the showdown.
Mr. Barton, I said a talk, not a showdown. Oh, and just to be sure,
Oh, now wait a minute.
he's too fast on the draw. You'd be dead before you could pull this thing out. Coming, Mr. Barton? Mr. Bedlow?
Ah, Colonel Mackenzie. I have something to show you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bedlow. We haven't time to look at pictures of cattle right now.
These aren't cattle, sir. They're dead men.
What?
They look like they've been shot.
Those your men, Mr. Barton?
Yes, it looks like them.
Where'd you take this?
Right down there.
Well? Those are my men, all right. Now we know what happened to them and why. Corby killed them so he could poison my water hole.
It occurs to me they were killed somewhere else and then dumped in that arroyo. Mr. Bedlow, you may be able to help us.
Gladly, Colonel. I think he's helped already. This proves Corby killed my men.
No. It proves they're dead. It doesn't prove that Corby killed them. We've got to get more evidence. And maybe there's a way of getting Mr. Corby himself to provide that evidence. Mr. Bedlow, how do you process your pictures? What chemicals do you use?
Well, it's rather complicated, but I'll be glad to show you. Excuse me. Now, when I expose a plate in my camera, I pour a little mercury into this saucer. Then I light this spirit lamp to heat the mercury. Now, when it starts to boil, the mercury vapor comes up. So I hold the exposed plate over the mercury vapor like this. Then I dip it in a basin of hyposulfite of soda, and the last thing is to wash it in water, like this. And it's finished.
I see. What happens if you run out of chemicals?
Well, then I'm out of business while I send back east for more. That's why I carry plenty with me. You see, mercury is about the only one you can buy most anywhere.
Mercury, huh? All right, Mr. Bedlow, thank you very much. I think the information will prove useful.
Nothing's going to be useful except going after Corby. The sooner the better.
We'll go see him now. Mr. Bedlow, supposing you drive back to Fort Clark.
Colonel, I want my gun.
No guns, Mr. Barton. Not yet.
No gun? We're dealing with killers, and he says no guns, even after that picture you took of my men. Well, I hope you won't be making the same kind of a picture of us.
September 29th, 1874. The southwest Texas frontier had flared into sudden violence. Men had been killed and cattle poisoned. These lawless acts, if allowed to spread, could incite the whole territory to a deadly range war. So Mackenzie rode to the ranch of Kel Corby. At his side, an unarmed man in search of vengeance.
You shouldn't say things like that, George. It's not neighborly.
You call it neighborly, poisoning my stock?
Why, there's not a cattleman in Texas that'd do a low-down trick like that. Oh, I'd say that those animals just up and died.
Died of what, Mr. Corby?
Well, could be most anything. I told you when you brought them here that shorthorns might do real fine back east where conditions are easier. But in Texas, no, sir. Country's too rough on them.
Oh, they'd thrive here as well as any place if given half a chance. Why, can't you see that it'd mean better quality beef for the whole country and at cheaper prices?
Now you're talking foolish. You spent your last dime on a losing proposition. And the sooner you face up to it, the quicker you can get out with a whole skin.
You're not threatening him, are you, Mr. Corby?
No. All I'm saying is the man ought to be able to skedaddle away from it while he can.
That's what you want, isn't it? Drive me out and leave the grazing for you and your longhorns.
This is longhorn country, George. Always has been. There's no cause to change it.
Sure there is if you just open your eyes to it. Longhorns need too much grassland. They're half wild, they're tough, and they're stringy.
I'm tired of trying to drill some sense into you. I guess you'll have to learn it the hard way. Seeing them animals of yours just lay down and die.
They didn't just lay down and die. You poisoned them.
Well, you don't.
All right. None of that. We came here for information, not for accusations. At least not yet.
Well, I admit that I don't hold with no shorthorns. But I didn't put no arsenic in their water.
How do you know it's arsenic?
I don't. But I just figured if they was poison, that'd be it. You won't find none of it around here. In fact, you're welcome to search the place.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Corby. It does seem rather odd, though, that none of the Longhorn ranches have been hit. Only Mr. Barton's Shorthorns.
Not so odd, maybe. Colonel, when a man puts his wad on a loser, he might try to copper his bet. Oh, I'm not saying that that's so. But suppose his herd's insured and he hires renegades to poison him, and then he collects. Fits this situation pretty well.
I suppose I had my own men killed, too, huh?
Well, you ain't been ranching long, or you'd know that all cowpokes is itchy-footed. Yeah, you Army fellas have got a name for that. Desertion.
No, not this time. There's a New York photographer in the area. He's been making a series of photographs. This is one of them.
I don't know anything about this. Nothing, you understand? Anybody who says I do is lying.
Well, the photographer has made other pictures. Perhaps they'll tell us more. We'll see them as soon as they're developed, when he gets some fresh mercury from Bracketville. Good day, Mr. Corby. Coming, Mr. Barton?
Give me 3. All pink.
When I hired you, I told you your job was to bust George Barton. You remember what else I said? I told you no killing.
Now, wait a minute, Mr. Corby. There ain't been no killing.
Don't you lie to me. I just saw a picture of 2 of his dead hands. Dead, you hear? Dead in that gully where you dumped them. I ought to blow you apart.
Just you simmer down, Mr. Corby. All right, we shot them riders. We had to. They got the deadwood on us, poisoned that water hole. What'd you want us to do? Give ourselves up and tell them you hired us?
Now look, there's a fella taking pictures everywhere. He found them dead men.
You don't say. I'd like to meet up with him. I ain't never seen one of them cameras. I never had my picture taken.
No, well, don't be too sure about that. He may have been up in the hills taking our pictures while we were spreading that poisoned rock salt.
If he had, Mackenzie'd have his whole regiment down on us right now.
That's real logical. But suppose he was taking our pictures and they ain't ready yet. There's no telling what they might show. Mackenzie let it slip. The fellow's going over to Bracketville to get some mercury, to develop them.
If that's all you're bothered about, that's easy to fix. We'll be looking for that photographer, huh, boys?
No more of that. No more shooting.
Once you start, it's hard to stop, Mr. Corby. I ain't gonna let no photographer get my neck stretched. Now, maybe you got a better idea.
Yeah, you're right. We'll kill him.
Come in.
Sir, Mr. Barton to see you.
You needn't announce me. You know what that is, Colonel?
Yes, I'd say it's rock salt.
You know what it's for?
Of course. All cattlemen put out rock salt for their herds. We put it out for our cavalry horses, too.
Not that kind. It's poisoned. 30 or 40 of my steers are dead, maybe even more. It got too dark for me to look. I think Corby set this out the day before we called on him.
I hope he did it in daylight.
Meaning what?
From what he said, I'm convinced, too, that Corby's guilty. But I haven't any proof. Now perhaps Mr. Corby himself will give me that proof. Because he's afraid of a photograph that could only have been made in the daylight. A photograph that actually doesn't exist at all.
Well, if it doesn't exist, I don't know what you're driving at.
If I'm right, Corby will try to destroy any evidence that might connect him with the death of those 2 men. Yeah. Excuse me, Mr. Barton, I've got work to do.
Good luck.
Thank you. Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant, pass the word for the raiders. Immediate alert. Oh, and Sergeant, ask Mr. Bedlow to drop over here to my office.
Yes, sir.
We'll split up here. You better stay out of this, Mr. Corby.
All right. What are you doing here? I thought I told you to stay back at the fort.
If they're going to shoot up my equipment, I want to be here to take a picture of it. All right, drop it. Is it over?
Let's hope so.
Well, that didn't take you long.
I had some help. Get back in! Get back in there! You're covered, Mr. Corby. Drop that gun. Wow. Excellent pictures, Mr. Bedlow.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. With one exception.
Now, that one will be a big feather in my cap when I get back to New York.
Well, at least I hope my sister will like it. Seriously, though, Mr. Bedlow, those pictures you took of Mr. Barton's cattle should arouse a good deal of interest. Those shorthorns are going to be tremendously important to this country someday. Especially now that he's able to raise them in peace. Come in. Yes, Sergeant?
Sir, the quartermaster asked me to report our commissary shipments are 2 weeks overdue. As of today, the regiment goes on canned rations and hardtack. We're completely out of beef.
Out of beef?
Yes, sir. We have to order it from the quartermaster in Kansas City. Regulation, sir.
Very well, Sergeant. Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
I think we can forego regulations this once. Ask Mr. Barton if he can sell us 100 head of cattle this afternoon. Shorthorns.
Yes, sir.
Hold it. Smile.
Mackenzie's raiders rode again and again, carrying out the secret orders of the President of the United States. Do whatever necessary to clean up the Southwest. Make it a decent place for people to live. Ride with Mackenzie's raiders as they relive the blazing pages of history in the making.